The rating period for this year's Brackey's Game Jam has just come to a close, and I'm super pumped to say that we came in 17th out of about 750 submissions with our game Spore Story, which is a 3D platform inspired by the life cycle of a fungus. The following is going to be a very rough compilation of the videos and pictures taken throughout the process, as it's my first go at video editing and my documentation is pretty unhelpful. Ding-hobba is me, Ding, and my brother Hobba. We've been half making games for a few years, but we're pretty dumb and spend most of our free time running, so we haven't done all that much. Fortunately, last year we made some super smart and talented friends who we've teamed up with to form the ding-hobba Friendship Collective. That's what I'm calling it until someone says otherwise. That includes Scott the Doc Low, who has some super cool homebrew NES stuff you should totally support. Machine Fossil, who will have a post-jam blog complaining about C# and Unity, if you're into that. And then Jess++ and Leo. We are all primarily programmers, with the exception of Leo, who did the excellent modeling and animation you'll see later in the video, and then Hobba, who did audio and graphics, among other things. First morning of the jam, I wake up due to extreme running-related pain in my pubis. And what do you know, it's 6:03 and the theme has just been announced. An end is a new beginning. I don't love it, but it's an easy one, and I open up my ideas document to jot down a few thoughts before going back to sleep. Meet up a few hours later to discuss ideas and roles, and we end up going with one of my sleepy 6 a.m. ideas. Essentially, you play through the life cycle of a fungus. The fungus's fruiting body, which is the mushroom, sprouts from the ground, releases a spore which floats in the wind, and if it lands in a good spot will grow and eventually sprout its own mushroom to continue the cycle. The player would control this spore, launching up and floating back down to earth, navigating obstacles while hunting out a healthy tile of soil. I imagine these medals that would work as upgrades or checkpoints in each section of the map, and the overall idea here being to find like the perfect spot for the mushroom to grow, which I think was subconsciously inspired by a side mission in Yoku's Island Express, which is an amazing game. Personally, I imagine like this cute like Link's Awakening remake vibe, or anything Ian Zell. That guy's a beast, though the view would need to be perspective for the platforming to be possible. Leo had some great stone tile models for us pretty quickly. We unanimously decided on the simpler of the two options. A lot of things are in progress still, so there's not much footage, but we're feeling pretty good at the end of day one. Day two, the Spore's physics-based controller is in a pretty good spot. It's super floaty and has some purlin noise that really makes it feel like it's being affected by the wind. There's dash and quick fall abilities and a bit of auto snap to tile, etc. Plus I've hooked up Cinemachine with some responsive zooming and controller support via Rewired. Honestly, I was really satisfied with how well I was able to capture the movement that I was picturing in my head. It was this moment where I felt like maybe these years of hobby game dev is finally starting to result in some sort of proficiency, maybe, hopefully. I say all that, but then like literally less than a day later, the Discord's talking about how frustrating the player is, so end up removing the wind effect, which I should have seen coming, and then tweak the parameters to get a tighter, more controlled feel. Machine Fossil has hooked up a state machine for the mushroom, and we're getting closer to actually having gameplay. And then here's a little sneak peek at early tests of Scott's level editor. Day 3, Hobba put together a fog shader that we've hooked up to an existing day-night system from our utilities. At this stage, there's still some confusion about whether we're going ortho or perspective view. This is ortho gameplay and it looks way better, but obviously the lack of depth makes the gameplay impossible almost. There's a little look here at the lava and ice blocks that Machine Fossil hooked up. Lava, hot air will raise your character, while the ice, cold air will make your character fall faster. There's some more of Leo's models, and then a rough draft teleportation mechanic I put together with the idea that you might hit a dirt block from the side, and then the fungus would grow underground and sprout a mushroom in a totally new area. Also got a checkpoint system working. The 2 side blocks in this example clip are checkpoints. So if you die, you'll be sent back to the most recent checkpoint, which Leo would later model to be a stump. Day 4, here I implement some camera controls and check it out in both ortho and perspective. If I remember correctly, we mostly agreed that camera movement should be pretty tightly controlled, and we didn't want to do the standard 3D platformer controls. I personally ended up regretting this quite a bit after seeing the itch comments, where it was probably one of the biggest complaints, and in the week after the jam I changed it to something more traditional. I think a common thing that was happening here was we could not decide between a puzzler or a platformer, and oftentimes, like in the case of the camera, we maybe went the wrong direction with our decision making. Hobba started on the main menu, I hooked up the settings, and then Jess introduced an enemy with a few pathfinding options, add some movement, some liveliness to our obstacles, and then she also put together this super sleek level loading animation. Day 5, Hobba was rolling on the title art and main menu stuff. Super important factor in getting people to actually rate your game beyond commenting on other people's submissions. Leo revealed his mushroom animations, which were sick. The original gameplay had a wilted state for mushrooms, and each mushroom could act as a sort of one-time checkpoint. We scrapped that and went with dedicated checkpoints, which was a great decision, but regrettably resulted in some unused animations, as you see here. This stuff is so sweet, and the comments were loving it. At the end of the day, I hooked up a real quick and dirty ability / pickup system. Here, for example, the Spore unlocks its dash ability, and Hobba's added some sound effects. Day 6, we finally face the fact that we need to have a name for our game, and we go with Spore Story, which was Leo's wife's idea. Jess's little guys get hooked up with some of Leo's soot sprites. I spent some time making sure the mushroom animator was working in the correct order. And then, of course, I wasted some time hooking up a mobile controller. Ended up taking this out of the final build. I regret this a lot. This is dumb. Leo went to Thailand. Final day, Hobba and I polished off the music. By this point, he had written 9 variations of a short track, and then we spent some time together as I sort of gave him a tutorial on mixing and mastering, which is very much blind leading the blind. I don't know how to do that stuff, and also another case of us just wasting time. We wanted the music to be adaptive, change as the player climbed higher and higher throughout the level, and so for this, I made this audio system that subscribes to a float event channel, and when an event is raised, in this case from the player reporting his own elevation, it lerps the volume of each track to the value that is evaluated on the associated animation curve. I don't know if that meant anything at all, but it was awesome in theory. It worked well in the editor, but I made a massive, devastating, disgusting mistake with the audio syncing and used the float time.time rather than the double audio settings.dsp time. Time.time is just not precise enough for audio related things, and so caused a lot of issues, a lot of negative feedback regarding the audio syncing. This haunts me and probably is the reason audio was our lowest rating when in past jams it's always been a bright spot. I hope you can see what we were going for here and how cool it could have been, and my apologies for ruining Hobba's soundtrack. Being dead. I broke this shader. I thought it was really funny because I was like deliriously tired, but I'm sure everybody in the group chat was like, bro, please focus on something important. Big thing I have yet to properly touch on is Scott's level editor. It was very robust for how quickly it was thrown together and was crucial in enabling Jess, Scott, and Machine Fossil to put together some awesome levels that last day. As you can see, there's functionality for setting and stacking blocks of every type, including checkpoints, as well as adjusting heights and randomizing rotations. It's really cool and could get more use if we follow up on the like puzzle game approach to Spore Story we talked about a little bit, but it's pretty sweet and resulted in some of these really cool levels. The verticality here is awesome, and we talked a bit about like a cheesy ending screen where the Spore floats through space overlooking the earth, but there was just absolutely no time for it. I returned to the ability system to quickly throw pickups around the level. These definitely needed some polish, but I think at this point it's already around 2 a.m. and I'm so sad. I put one in the volcano, which I now know is impossible to get. I threw together a super quick boundary system to make sure the shroom is within the bounds of the world. This was surprisingly easy and worked first go, which made me really happy, but we didn't have time to play test properly after I added those pickups, one of which added 2 to your launch height, which resulted in a handful of people hitting the top of the boundary and dying seemingly for no reason about 2/3 through the world. That's my bad, and definitely a good lesson on the balance between adding features and playtesting in a game jam. Super cool Unity glitch. At 4 AM, I noticed that this part of the level looks like an ancient giant that's become part of the earth, and it makes me really happy. That's lore right there. Tell me what other jam game has lore. None of them. We're sick for that. We spend the last 2 hours making some last minute corrections and adjustments and struggling to get out builds, but we get it done. I submitted our last web build at 5:52, 8 minutes before the deadline, shed a single tear, and went off to bed, swearing to never stay up that late again. The jam was smaller this year, but this is still our best absolute and relative finish in a game jam. Previously having finished 365th out of about 1800 in Brackey's 2020, our first submission, and then last year 63rd out of 1100 when the Doc and Machine Fossil joined us, and then of course this jam 17th out of about 750 with the addition of Jess++ and Leo. It seems more really is merrier, and we've got a group of people who all bring so much to the table, much of which I definitely did not capture in this low effort vlog. The trend is very promising, and I'm super excited for the future, both in regards to jams and personal projects, assuming that I forget how extraordinarily painful this entire process was and ever want to make a game again. I lost my 27-day Duolingo streak doing this jam. Post-jam, we did make a few fixes to the game. For instance, I changed the camera rotation, added a shadow, and some tutorial-like messages using a tow system that Scott made during the jam that we just kind of forgot to implement regarding tutorials. And then of course I fixed the audio syncing that haunts me. So now to take some time to relax and eventually get back on other projects. Thanks for watching.
Old Man Ding?